Good question. And, and I'm guessing what you're getting at there is like, does that bail out a company that really should have failed and teach the wrong lesson to that company? And I think what I would say, there's two things. First of all, I'm way more excited to bail out customers than shareholders, right? And so the focus of this is not how do we deliver as much shareholder value to troubled assets as possible, right? It's how do we protect customers? And I think those imply pretty different things. So that's one thing that I'll say. And I think that one of them is way more important for the ecosystem, and the other is the one that has the biggest moral hazard. The other thing is that
Sergio Silva of Fireblocks.
Plus, more from our exclusive interview with Sam Bankman-Fried, the billionaire.
And to the extent that there's alignment on it. If we don't buy, we will build. And that's what we are gearing up to do, is to build out everything that we need internally. This is more, identifying potential opportunities, if there are any, for us to, grow, further and faster. And obviously, the changing valuations do play a real role in our decision making here. I think basically that there are some businesses that I think have a really bright future in front of them. I think others were probably just always overhyped and never made a ton of sense and were mostly froth. We are trying to find who were the responsible players who were building out a good business, had a sustainable model. Now, obviously, we'll take a look at anything, right? And there might come along a really compelling opportunity. We're always looking at possibilities.
So the fallout from recent crypto chaos continues. Vold, the Singapore-based crypto lender, announced a freeze on client withdrawals and says it has signed a tentative agreement to be acquired now by rival Nexo. Vold has become the latest among several crypto lenders to resort to emergency measures in order to stay afloat.
Joining us now is Noel Atchison, head of market insights at Genesis Trading. Noel, thank you as always for joining us. Let's start big picture here. You have a background in capital markets. Since Vold isn't the first to send this sort of message, you had Celsius, you had Three Arrows Capital as well. How much of this move that you're seeing, this crunch, I should say, is a result of the macro factors? Kind of connect the dots for us, if you will.
That's a great question, Gritty. And hi, Matt. Thank you both so much for having me. I do have to say that everything I say is my opinion, not that of my employer. And of course, nothing I say is investment advice. But
a loan and some credit facilities, about $485 million to Voyager. And now they're trying to recover around $75 million of that back in a loan following this bankruptcy proceeding. And other than that, we're seeing some lines like almost $1 million going to Google because of cloud costs at Voyager. And so, for the little people anyway, it really is unsure what they'll get back.
All right, Bloomberg's Emily Nicole, thank you so much. And of course, be sure to catch Bloomberg Crypto every Tuesday at 1 p.m. New York time, 6 p.m. in London. Matt Miller and I break down all of the crypto news. Now, talking of crypto, let's get a look at some stocks moving in pre-market trading here in the U.S. because one of the big underperformers is Coinbase, the big cryptocurrency exchange. Really, this just is not a company that can catch a break. It's down 78% so far this year, down another 4% or so this morning. Another stock that is posting a relatively big decline is DoorDash, down about 5%. This isn't so much having to do with this company as it is having to do with one of its competitors, because Amazon, the news came overnight, has now gotten a deal to take as much up to a 15% stake in Grubhub, which is a competitor to DoorDash. Amazon apparently going to offer membership for those who have Prime membership, so that's weighing on DoorDash this morning. One more positive story out there, though, is Rocket, of course, the mortgage company. It was raised to overweight at Wells Fargo, $10 price target on the stock, which would be a 24% increase from yesterday's close. Right now, that stock up the better part of 3% in early hours, trading around $8.28 a share. Anna.
Digital this morning, even after FTX's Sam Bankman-Fried came in and bailed them out with an over $450 million loan. They're still filing for bankruptcy. And now individual investors in the platform and retail investors can't get their money out. Folks, from both of you. So this question for both of you: what happens when people like Sam Bankman-Fried run out of money to keep bailing out companies in the industry? And maybe we do get that mass panic event. Are retail consumers going to want to be part of crypto when that event happens, or jump in, after that event happens? You first, Kevin O'Leary, then Ben.
Well, I have to disclose I'm a shareholder. Ben, you should be aware, is a shareholder in WonderFi as well. He came in around the same time I did. I am a paid spokesperson for FTX, so I have a lot of respect for the management there. I did a lot of due diligence before I accepted that position because I wanted to have a compliant home. But Sam is one of the smarter guys in this space for this reason. Long before crypto, he was a trader. He understands the power of leverage, both to the dark side and the upside of performance. So I'm going to guess, and it's a personal opinion, the last guy to blow up is going to be Sam Bankman-Fried because he doesn't get himself caught in over-levered positions. Now, they're very, very good in terms of managing their own business. He's got a huge team there. Ryan, the CEO, they also manage the Americas differently. They do the rest of the world. They're compliance. His parents are compliance lawyers at Stanford. I mean, he doesn't have a better heritage in terms of managing this process. So I think he's probably going to be one of the ones that picks up the pieces and has been doing that in recent purchases that are made public in various platforms that are just getting crushed. It's a long-term strategic move. I think it's smart.
Ben, your thoughts, liquidity, VC space, what are you seeing? What happens if Sam Bankman-Fried runs out of money or will he?
Yeah, I think if Sam runs out of money, it would be interesting to see if other more traditional financial institutions step in to participate in bailing out some of these parties. I think that'll be interesting because we have seen a lot of financial institutions make big investments into the crypto space. So I think that'll be something to keep an eye on. Government involvement in bailouts. I don't necessarily know whether that's on the table, but I think that's the sort of lens that I'm looking at it through. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I do think it is great to see Sam and FTX stepping up and hopefully being able to preserve some customer funds through the actions that they're taking. I think at the end of the day, we can look at this from an investor standpoint, from a user standpoint, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, there are lots of retail users of crypto, a lot of them first time, who are stuck out holding the bag and with amounts of money that are very significant to them. And so I think always looking at it from that lens is really important, because this is
Bankman-Fried is out $500 million.
That's a real number.
That's a real number. Exactly. I'm glad. Yes.
He doesn't seem that worried, Sam.
Today, Ben Page there, who is the CEO of Ipsos. Now, coming up, lender, borrower, and investor Sam Bankman-Fried is all things to the bankrupt crypto broker Voyager.
Well, we've talked a lot about UK politics today, but we want to venture over to the crypto universe because Voyager's bankruptcy filing provides a bit of a roadmap into the company's relationships, including borrowers, lenders, and investors. And it turns out Alameda Research, the trading firm co-founded by crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, is all three. Emily Nicole, Bloomberg crypto reporter, joins us now. So, Emily, we already knew that he lent Voyager money. It turns out he actually also owes them money, and he's invested. It's the whole trifecta. Explain.
Yeah, so it's day 2 since Voyager filed for bankruptcy, and the filings that are coming out of that are showing us quite a map between Alameda and Voyager. Alameda lent Voyager around $485 million in a mix of crypto and US dollars a few weeks ago because of the chaos that's happening in crypto markets at the moment. And now that Voyager's filed for bankruptcy, we learned that not only is Alameda still owed $75 million of that, but it also has a $377 million loan to Alameda from Voyager. So it is both borrowing and investing. And on top of that, it has a more than 9% stake in the business. So there's a lot of different risks at play here.
This is, to me, the most puzzling part, Emily Nicole. Why on earth would Alameda have borrowed money, now more than it's owed, from Voyager?
Well, I can't pretend to know the thinking of Sam Bankman-Fried on that one, but it is something that is inherent in the crypto industry. It's becoming incredibly apparent that a lot of intermixing goes on between different players, and it's something that's really causing a bit of a headache right now. It's why so many crypto lenders are struggling, because there is so much contagion across different assets, different players. So many companies are exposed to the fallout of 3 Arrows Capital, a hedge fund that is in the process of going bust at the moment. And whether or not crypto will ever be able to recover from this interweaving web is a matter for the future to decide.
Emily, thanks so much for joining us. Emily and Nicole there, Bloomberg crypto reporter, talking to us about Voyager and Sam Bankman-Fried. Be sure to catch Bloomberg Crypto.
The miners, a surprising source of selling pressure.
Yeah, I mean, they're part of this over-leveraged story, right? They had to, they borrowed funds to buy a lot of these mining rigs and were, like many traders, over-levered. And now with Bitcoin declining, they kind of have to navigate this broader deleveraging. But it's a brutal market. I've never seen this amount of leverage sucked out of the system in such a short span of time. And right now, the traders I talk to say that they have a lot of counterparties that have failed, to your point earlier, or we don't even know what their status is in terms of their exposure and the degree to which they've engaged with Three Arrows. So it's a pretty cautious period right now.
Yeah, it feels to me a little bit like the spring of 2008, where you had the collapse of Bear Stearns, but then this kind of quiet period where everything was fine over the summer, and then another wave of selling pressure hit. What are people you talk to saying about the way it feels?
Well, I think it's a big wake-up call for people who are in the market, right? You had these firms that, and I remember when I came on a few months ago, you asked a very sharp question of where are these yields coming from? Frankly, we should have been asking that question harder and more to these firms. That you have Voyager, right, which had a 23-to-1 assets to equity ratio. 60% of their loan book was concentrated in Three Arrows. And so it looked nice when you had the juicy yields, but behind the scenes, in the background, was just a huge amount of irresponsible risk-taking, to sort of echo on Mike Novogratz there. And now we're all asking these questions. And I think the question of trust and whether or not we can trust certain counterparties is at the forefront in a way that it's never been, at least during this cycle.
Mike Novogratz's Galaxy Digital are also on that list of Voyager borrowers. Bankman-Fried, though, through his companies FTX and Alameda, has already plowed hundreds of millions of dollars in emergency loans into various crypto companies. Now has the option to buy one of those companies. BlockFi, as we've talked about, and in an interview with Reuters, Bankman-Fried says he and his companies still have, quote, a few billion on hand to help struggling crypto firms, and that the worst of this liquidity crunch has likely passed. But his role here highlights all of the links between these crypto firms, guys, some of the contagion we've seen within lending. It also shows what some are calling recycled capital within the space.
Where Sam Bankman-Fried talked about most of the deleveraging taking place, Novogratz echoes that today. You think it's true?
I think that's absolutely true, but I think the question...
Well, we've got Sam, haven't we? Sam Bankman-Fried, the White Knight, coming in and trying to save the day. And, in every sort of crisis, I guess you need somebody like him to come up and at least try to sort of...
Summit, which will gather some of the biggest names in the industry. We'll hear from billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried as well as Mike Novogratz, among others. Matt, Katie, and I all will be there at different points throughout the day. The summit starts in person and virtually at 8:45 a.m. New York time and continues all day.
Than the previous generation. She's really worried about the labor force, the way that the U.S. is investing in its labor force and immigration policy.
And to hold back following the startup funding boom in 2021. And that is especially true in crypto. According to PitchBook, in the second quarter, only $6.76 billion in venture money was invested into crypto companies, a 31% decline.
Because there are reports about some gating issues at Skybridge, as well as fund performance, given his big stakes in the world of crypto. Anthony, thanks for joining us.
Oh, Andrew, good morning. Thanks for having me on. Where would you like to start?
I'd like to start with the headlines and really try to understand from your perspective what's happening. The headline from Bloomberg, Scaramucci halts withdrawals in a fund after stock and crypto swoon. It seems to suggest that investors are concerned about you gating their ability to withdraw from the fund.
Okay, so that is our Legion fund, which is an offshore fund. It's a Cayman-based vehicle. It has about $250 million in it. The decision was made to suspend the redemptions. Of course, those are temporary suspensions. We do that alongside of an independent board. That fund's 27 years old, Andrew. It started in 1994. This is the first time that we've ever had a suspension. And so obviously none of us at Skybridge necessarily wanted to suspend it, but we have to take into account a balance of different factors. We have some private investments in there, and what you don't want to do is have the mix overly change due to near-term redemptions. And so our board made the decision to temporarily suspend until we can raise capital inside the fund, and then make sure that when people get out, they get out orderly, and we keep the fund's portfolio composition more or less in sync, so not to damage investors that frankly want to stay in. Now, the fund's down 30% year to date. It's up 5% this month. The fund is unlevered, so there's absolutely no fear of any liquidation whatsoever. And about 18% of the fund is in what we would call crypto exposure. So some of that is in things like Bitcoin, also private investments in things like Sam Bankman-Fried's company, FTX. So stepping back from the whole thing, we made the decision alongside of our independent board. And as things start to get better,
Novogratz of Galaxy Digital. We heard just about an hour and a half or so ago from Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX. He's been called the White Knight of crypto.
Scarsdale, and I had to transfer the down payment, which happened over like 3 different TransferWise interactions. So I'm really glad that someone's disrupted this in this segment, innovating here. Jack Mallers, as I'm sure you all know, has created Strike, which is a platform or an app that uses the Lightning Network. This is actually Grateful Dead.
It's a hell of a time, brother.
It's actually,
also, thanks for having me. Yeah. But yeah.
So I want to first know, we were just talking about, you've grown up. You're digitally native, right? I mean, the white paper was released when you were like 14 or 15. So how did you get into...
Bloomberg's Sonali Bostic, thank you so much, and great coverage at the summit yesterday. And of course, billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX is the subject of today's big take as well. You can read all about it online at Bloomberg.com or typing "NI Big Take" into your terminal. Let's head over to
and the fading American dream. This is Bloomberg.
CEO Sam Bankman-Fried has become known as the lender of last resort in the crypto industry, and he saved several businesses with emergency funding during the bear market.
Latest target may be tough to acquire.
Plus, to access all the latest data and news on crypto, check out CRYP Go.
Scientist at Scary Technologies. Yes, that is his real title. Nicholas, thank you so much for joining us. You have been quoted multiple times as saying that the cryptocurrency system should die in a fire. Why?
So let's split out 2 factors, the technology and the economics. From a technological standpoint, there's no innovation. It's basically repackaging stuff we've seen for decades with a few innovations that just make things worse. So like cryptocurrency mining burns, 0.5% of the world's electricity, and yet how many transactions can Bitcoin perform? 3 to 7 transactions per second worldwide. The technology is so bad, I can only teach it to mock it.
Doesn't Lightning solve that?
No, because the Lightning Network can only add 3 to 7 users per second on a worldwide basis, because any Lightning transaction to create a channel, refund a channel, or close a channel requires a Bitcoin transaction. So Lightning does not solve the problem, except that the no intermediary system does not scale. That 3 to 7 transactions per second worldwide. That's the hard limit on these systems. But as important, they don't actually work for payments if the payments would be processed by the normal system because of the volatility. The price is always bouncing up and down. And when we actually look at the economics, it's effectively a self-assembled Ponzi scheme. So I'm a savvy investor. And by savvy investor, it means I put my money in index funds and ignore it for a couple of decades. Now, this is a positive sum game. When I eventually sell my index funds, both stock and bonds, my gains are not just due to what somebody else will pay for it, but also the gains from dividends and interest payments and the like.
Right.
And that makes it
Nicholas,
positive sum.
If I could just ask you, you talk a lot about the proof of work system, how it's inefficient, how it uses a lot of energy. But then you have Ethereum, for example, which when the merge takes place, we think in the next couple of months, is going to move to a proof of stake system in which you can see a lot more transactions processed per second, in which energy use in theory is going to go down. So are you talking about proof of work system separately from proof of stake? Because that's not the entire crypto ecosystem dying in a fire.
No, so first of all, economically, it is a self-assembled Ponzi scheme, and that alone would be enough. But proof of stake doesn't solve these problems.
Losing assets or anything like that.
That was FTX co-founder and CEO Sam Bankman-Fried speaking at the Bloomberg Crypto Summit last week.
And of course, the crypto billionaire has been using the $2 trillion crypto route to carry out a deal-making spree. His latest target, however, looks a little less certain.
Crypto platform Voyager Digital has called the offer from FTX, quote, a lowball bid dressed up as a white knight rescue. Hannah Miller, Bloomberg crypto reporter, joins us now to explain that. Hannah, so I thought he was the lifeline to Voyager, and now they kind of spit in his face. What's the story?
Yeah, no, Voyager is not happy with what they call a lowball offer. They think it's just kind of a publicity stunt that he's using to generate goodwill within the industry and that he's disrupting the bankruptcy process. They see all the advantages here for FTX and Alameda, not for Voyager.
Well, and you talk about kind of that reputation. Why is there some resentment concerning that white knight image?
I think the crypto industry is at a crossroads right now with Sam Bankman-Fried consolidating power. Some people really resent the fact that he's stepping in, buying up companies, bailing people out, gaining control over an industry that is supposed to be decentralized. Other people see him as crypto's patron saint, who's really helping out.
How much money has SBF made, and how much does he still have after the crypto crash?
Yes, his fortune is estimated to be around $10 billion. That's about half of where it was in April. He has pledged to give most of this personal wealth away, and he is still passionate about making deals within the industry. He said last week that he's willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on supporting crypto.
Yeah, I guess his version of a small amount of cash lit on fire isn't exactly the same as the rest of ours. Thank you so much to Bloomberg's Hannah Miller. That's going to wrap it up for Bloomberg Crypto this week, but you can join us again next week, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern Time every Tuesday, right here on Bloomberg Television. This
into Coinbase. Sam Bankman-Fried is in talks to buy another crypto company. And now that the Texas power grid is stabilized, we find out how extreme weather affected crypto mining in the state. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Mackenzie Sigalos. Crypto prices falling yet again today as investors wait to see how high the Fed will hike interest rates tomorrow. Now, by noon Eastern, Bitcoin dropped to $20,000, Ethereum dropped to $1,300, and Uniswap fell to $6. Okay, here are some stories that you should know about. First, crypto exchange Coinbase faces a new probe by the SEC. The agency is investigating whether the platform lets customers trade cryptocurrencies that should be treated as unregistered securities. Now, Coinbase responded to the probe with its chief legal officer tweeting that the company's diligence process, which the SEC did review, keeps securities off the platform. Now, just yesterday, I talked to Ari Redboard of TRM Labs about whether some of the tokens listed on Coinbase were considered securities. You can find that interview over at cnbc.com/cryptoworld. Next, Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX continue to buy up crypto companies. The latest potential acquisition is BitHum, a cryptocurrency exchange based in South Korea. The owner of the company tweeted that talks were being held between BitHum and FTX, and though nothing was decided yet, the two companies were discussing all options, including partnership or full acquisition. SBF scooped up BlockFi for $240 million last month, and its companies have lent out millions in emergency funding during the downturn. Last up, Chipotle is giving away crypto. The restaurant announced yesterday that through the end of July, customers will be able to play the Buy the Dip game, in which the company is giving away $200,000 in crypto, including Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, and more. Chipotle now accepts crypto through payments platform Flexa, but the process is a little complicated. To make a payment in store, you have to download a separate app and deposit just the right amount of crypto for your purchase. If you put in too much, well, there's no withdrawal feature. Oh, and a burrito purchase is still a taxable event. All right, for our main story of the day, we wanted to turn our attention to Texas. Crypto miners are coming back online after the record heat wave that strained the state's power grid. I spoke to Steve Bassi, co-founder and CEO of Polyswarm, about the impact of that heat wave on miners and whether the mining business could change as extreme weather becomes more common.
So looking back on the last few months, how much of an impact did the energy shortages and extreme heat have on crypto miners in Texas?
Sure. I think there's a lot of things going on there. One is you see it in other Western states, the drought and the reduction in hydropower. So that's a big concern, especially with the heat. And then obviously in Texas, air conditioning usage is going to go up. And I think what people don't realize is crypto miners, use anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 watts of power per miner, which is about the same as your stove. So imagine if, thousands of stoves at any one time were being turned on to mine cryptocurrency.
Third week of
Who
April.
is behind it? None other than Sam Bankman-Fried, the crypto darling of Wall Street, praised by the media, called the savior of crypto. I've shared my opinion of this guy's ethics already. This guy, he is a very impressive strategist. Basically, he's growing a crypto empire. But ask the customers of Voyager if they saved them a single penny. The answer is going to be no, but he came out richer when some of you guys came out poor. Well, anyways, I just want to say peace and blessing, my friend.
Took a revenue hit because of Bitcoin. The payments platform reported a $36 million Bitcoin loss thanks to tanking prices and its Cash App business. With prices down so significantly. The documents also give a sense of Sam Bankman-Fried's growing global footprint. The CEO owns FTX Trading, which now owns companies in Cyprus, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, all over the place. It also acquired companies in Switzerland and Australia recently, which may have also been to get certain regulatory licenses. Unclear how the company is holding up in the recent downturn. We don't have those Q2 numbers, but it last raised money at a $32 billion valuation. If you look at shares of Coinbase, it's the only real public comparison out there. That stock is down about 70% since January.
Okay, next up, Australia is ready to reform rules around crypto. The nation's treasury announced its plans to build regulations around something called token mapping.
Kind of retail wallets in particular. That's also, depending on which miner you look at, that tends to be kind of their average marginal cost of production.
On the latter of which makes up 55% of hosted nodes. Next, Sam Bankman-Fried says that FTX isn't buying Wobi. Bloomberg reported earlier this month that both FTX and Tron founder Justin Sun were looking to buy a majority stake in the crypto exchange. Sun previously denied those talks, and now SBF joined in with a tweet this morning saying that FTX is not planning on buying the exchange. Bankman-Fried has been on a spending spree, though, providing emergency funding to several businesses during the crypto downturn. Finally, NFT trading on OpenSea has evaporated this summer. According to DappRadar, trading volume on the platform fell from $135 million back in May to just $8 million last week.
Billion net worth makes a difficult 2024. Sam Bankman-Fried with David Rubenstein. This is an extremely important conversation for all wired up to crypto like me and Lisa. Mr. Rubenstein joins us this morning. Look for that at 9 p.m. tonight. This guy's controversial, to say the least. What is his cred? What is the thing that he has that makes people in crypto listen to him?
Well, he's very smart. He's made a lot of money. When you make a lot of money...
Lost a lot of money too, David.
But at the age of 30, he was worth $22 billion. He became the youngest person to sign the Giving Pledge, and he's committed to giving away all his money. He basically spends nothing on himself. He lives in the Bahamas, basically has no clothes of any consequence. He wears shorts and T-shirts and tennis shoes all the time. He lives in a dorm with 8 friends or so. He only cares about certain public issues and public policy, but he's very unusual.
How does he control, or what does he believe the price of Bitcoin will do? How does it discover a bid at whatever level?
Well, I didn't ask him that because he operates FTX, which is an exchange, so it gives everybody the opportunity to buy or sell Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. He doesn't know what the right price should be. He recently bailed out a lot of companies that had troubles. He might lose money on all that, but he feels it was good for the industry.
So why is this industry important from a social benefit kind of way if he is, David, incredibly idealistic and looking for the betterment of a social order?
Well, his view is that people who have money should give away that money or do things for good social purposes, and that's what he's always believed in. He now has a fair amount of money, and he's giving away a good deal of money. He's also involved in politics, and he gives a lot of money to politicians. He thinks it's good to get good public servants in government, and so he's trying to back the ones he thinks are good. He has an unusual lifestyle in that he's really not buying any of the accoutrements of wealth that you normally get when you have a multi-billion-dollar fortune.
And very willing to spend money on lobbying. I interviewed somebody the other day, Sam Bankman-Fried, who you probably have interviewed as well, and he spends a fair amount of time in Washington, puts a fair amount of money into political contributions, and I just think the industry is not likely to be soft in terms of its dealing with members of Congress. They're going to be fairly aggressive, and I think members of Congress are probably going to react by not pushing the regulators to do more than they're already doing.
Is that the secret to investing in Washington, though, just following the lobbying dollars, following where, I mean, is cash king in a situation where you're aggressive as an industry to push your views? That's not the only thing.
Take aerospace defense. The defense budget, people have been saying for the last 25 or 30 years is too high, but it keeps going up, and probably it's a pretty good.
The token in the run-up to its announcement and continuing to add to stockpiles.
FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried says his efforts to bail out companies during the crypto market downturn have had mixed results. The 30-year-old billionaire engineered deals worth about $1 billion to backstop struggling companies after cryptocurrency prices declined sharply in the spring and summer. He highlighted June's $485 million loan to crypto lender Voyager as one which didn't meet his expectations.
And finally, a story we've mentioned a few times. Binance, the largest crypto exchange by volume, will start converting any existing user balances and new deposits of USD coin into the company's own stablecoin. In a statement released today, the company says Pax Dollar and True USD will also be converted. The transition is scheduled to begin on September 29th. So, Matt, I get that all of it in theory is dollar for dollar. It's pegged to the US dollar, and yet it's kind of a big move from Binance to do that.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the most fascinating stories. And like I said, it's just like having 1,000 different adapters for the same kind of plug. Yeah. But each company wants to have its own adapter. And I just think it's going to end up very interesting.
Yep, it's something.
From crypto exchange FTX, they're going to be taking a 30% stake in the crypto investment firm Skybridge Capital. Joining us right now is Anthony Scaramucci, Skybridge's Capital founder and CNBC contributor, of course. Also, Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX founder and CEO, joining us this morning.
Watch again, my friend. Listen, I watched the interview this morning with Andrew, and you had Sam on Andrew and kind of talked about what it meant. That was earlier today. You've probably read some of the coverage. What are people maybe missing or getting wrong about this deal?
Well, Brian, I'm going to tell you what you're missing is you're missing your tie. I thought you were like an old school guy like me.
I'm trying to pretend I'm young.
All right, so just let you know, the next time I interview, I'm coming with the Sam Bankman-Fried T-shirts, okay, just so you know. But I think what people are missing, just when I'm reading about the deal, I think people are missing the closeness of the relationship that our two firms have built together, and the
You will. Sam Bankman-Fried has really played a key role in the crypto industries. Well, I sat down with Bankman-Fried outside of FTX's headquarters to talk about his role as the industry's lender of last resort.
Without being terrified that unknown unknowns were going to blow them up somehow.
It's too soon to tell, of course, if these crypto bets will pay off. Time will tell. But Bankman-Fried has continued that spending spree, most recently with Skybridge Capital. As far as how they're able to afford all of this, Bankman-Fried says FTX is profitable, has kept costs low with about 1/10 the amount of employees as some other exchanges, and the company has raised about $2 billion in venture capital money. For that full 90-minute interview, head over to CNBC Pro on CNBC.
That's the question. Is he willing to do what's best for Robinhood and leave the company?
Last follow-up, Sam Bankman-Fried, what if he bought Robinhood? Would you trust him in his leadership from FTX?
He's one of the scariest people I know.
Okay.
I don't know him, but I'm scared of him.
All right, deal. We'll leave it there. Ross,
thanks.
Tell us about your company.
Well, Gerber Kawasaki, you should reach out. This is the time to work with a financial advisor. Let's be real.
Also important to mention that Ross is on the board of HouseHack. He's a registered investment advisor. We're looking to diversify our governance. That's why Ross is there. And this is not a solicitation to invest. So you want to go read the PPM at househack.com if you want to learn more.
We reached out to FTX, and a spokesperson declined to comment. Sam Bankman-Fried's conglomerate has tried to bill itself as crypto savior, swooping in to buy distressed assets at a discount, all while rivals have been hit hard by this year's so-called crypto winter.
I mean, it is identical. This culture that we have, based, as we refer to, on crypto values, libertarian values. This is, Jesse and I are in lockstep. I was, a co-author of all of these various different pieces, and so that it needs to be steadfast through this transition. And that was, absolutely something that we all agree is critical. It's
Kate, I just wonder, with this Sam Bankman-Fried sort of legend that's
Sam Bankman-Fried, the JPM of crypto, as we like to refer to him.
Hear from, and this is the big one, folks, billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, an interview you don't want to miss. This is Bloomberg.
The U.S. subsidiary of Sam Bankman-Fried's crypto exchange was picked as the highest bidder of Voyager's assets to the tune of $1.4 billion. Of course, SBF has been propping up struggling crypto businesses with emergency funding and, in some cases, acquiring them outright. At the same time, the U.S. president of FTX is stepping down. Brett Harrison announced on Twitter securities or providing disclosures. The lawsuits also claim Nexo made customers believe it was licensed when it wasn't. All right, on to our main story. Gemini is partnering with digital investment advisor Betterment to offer curated crypto portfolios to customers.
So Betterment believes in investing choice for our customers, and we've seen demand from our client base for crypto offerings. What we've come to recognize is that for most people, investing in crypto is too challenging. It's complicated, the industry moves too quickly, and quite frankly, it's scary. And so our objective is to simplify investing in this asset class and make it a similar experience that someone would get investing in any other traditional investment fund or mutual fund. So we will have an offering that includes 4 pre-built portfolios that are managed by the Betterment investing team. They are thematic in nature, so they allow people to invest in specific topical areas of this asset class that they may be interested in. Investing here because they're participating in sort of a transformational set of technology, and not necessarily because they're expecting sort of this get-rich-quick scheme.
Mayor joins us to talk strategy and succession as his deputy steps down.
And scrutiny. Bankman-Fried has recently been making wagers in areas that also give it more access to help expose FTX to more TradFi, while FTX has been separately expanding its stock trading business and its investment arm backed a prime brokerage last month that focuses on both digital assets and foreign exchange. So clearly, SBF is thinking about ways the two worlds converge. And of course, FTX U.S. President Brett Harrison has been a big part of that bridge with TradFi, having previously worked at Jane Street with SBF. But Harrison announced earlier today he's stepping down from his role, and he's staying in the crypto space, writing in a tweet that he's remaining in the industry with the goal of removing technological barriers to full participation in and the maturation of global crypto markets, both centralized and decentralized.
All right, Bloomberg's Sonali Basak, thank you so much for the great breakdown. Now let's get to the man himself. Sam Bankman-Fried, founder and CEO of FTX, is joining us from the Bahamas for an exclusive interview. Sam, thank you so much for joining us once again. It's great to have you. Let's just start on the news of the day and the departure of Brett Harrison. What exactly is going on? How long has this been in the works, and where does it leave FTX US?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the kind of thing that, would go public were it not to have been, in the works for a little while. I'm excited about a pathway forward. I'm really excited about our leadership. And, ultimately, it's important that, we go in directions that we feel best in, and that he does as well. And really excited about our, upcoming, Miami headquarters.
Does it affect, you think, your valuation? I know that CNBC has said you're looking to raise another $1 billion. Orlando Bravo in the FT said he's willing to invest further. Does this affect, the level at which investors are going to be willing to put more money in?
In which direction?
Well, down, because
like
if you want to stay at 32 billion, which I think was the valuation in January after the crash of Bitcoin and now this, it may make some investors skittish.
I mean, honestly, that's up for them to decide. I would be pretty surprised, and I would not want them as investors. So good riddance if that's what they think.
Well, if we could just talk about kind of succession more broadly, though, because Brett Harrison's departure is not the only noteworthy one we have seen at crypto firms just in recent weeks. The Celsius CEO stepping down, obviously the bankruptcy at issue there, but Jesse Powell over at Kraken, there has been a string of these departures. Are you thinking about your own plan, how long you plan to stay at the helm, and ultimately who is going to take your place when the day comes?
I'm going to be here for the long term. I have no plans to leave. That is not something that is on my horizon. And, I would not be spending a lot of my energy looking at succession planning that was not going to come into effect yet. So.
All right. So what about, Sam, the valuation of the company? I mean, since January, you've grown, obviously. You have a much bigger footprint. You're arguably the most important person and company in crypto right now. On the other hand, the underlying assets have come down a lot in value, right? In January, we were already looking at 45,000, 40,000, 35,000, but now we're looking at 20 and sometimes flirting with a 17 handle.
Yeah.
Sam, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We know you're super busy down there. Sam Bankman-Fried talking to us from FTX headquarters in the Bahamas.
Well, and coming up, Matt, we're going to talk more about pricing because
yesterday that the exchanges include KuCoin and OKX. Now, the request comes just days after Interpol reportedly issued a red notice for Do Kwon, which asks international law enforcement to arrest a fugitive in the hopes of extradition or prosecution. South Korean officials say they have been unable to track down Do Kwon. Misinformation that has been spreading, tweeting that there is no cash out as alleged and that he hasn't used KuCoin or OKX in at least the past year.
What we do is global, but when we thought about putting together a kind of platform ecosystem conference, we thought that the Bay Area would be sort of the top of the list. There's so much talent that has done that in other industries, here as well.
Regulation is a big topic. I know you guys work closely with a lot of folks in Washington. It seems
and research and things like that around the world, and collaboration projects, proofs of concepts, and other.
The entire crypto market since Bitcoin hit its all-time high last November. Last, Sam Bankman-Fried's advisor told Elon Musk that he was potentially interested in buying Twitter. This, according to text messages released amid the Tesla CEO's court battle with the social media company. According to a report from Insider and messages reviewed by us, a top advisor to the crypto billionaire contacted Musk in March, saying that he saw his poll about Twitter and free speech. The advisor wrote, quote, "I'm not sure if this is what's on your mind, but my collaborator Sam Bankman-Fried has for a while been potentially interested in purchasing it and then making it better for the world." He then provided Bankman-Fried's number to discuss a potential, quote, joint effort in that direction. Musk wrote back asking if the FTX CEO had, quote, huge amounts of money, and the advisor responded by saying he would be willing to contribute as much as $8 to $15 billion. The advisor tried to set up a meeting between the two billionaire CEOs, but as you know, SPF never officially joined the bid to buy Twitter. We reached out to the FTX CEO, but didn't hear back as of 12:30 Eastern.
Consensus mechanisms to streamline that process by creating a timestamp on the block. This saves validators time and allows Solana to quickly process numerous amounts of transactions.
Normally in a proof-of-stake consensus, you have one leader who's producing all of the transactions and running the programs and producing blocks. So that leader in Solana is basically continuously computing this hash function. So they're providing evidence that they've been doing some work over time.
Wallets associated with Solana were also hacked.
There's been about 24 hours of downtime over the last 18 months on the network.
And these issues have cost Solana millions of dollars and weighed on its reputation and trust.
1.10, the new release, a lot of folks have noticed that it's much faster and much more reliable. And that's been kind of our MO. Every release gets cheaper and faster and better.
And the one that can deliver the most value to the most users and can scale quickly to meet, a global market, sure, there's going to be an advantage there. But I think there's no world where, Ethereum fails or Solana fails. It's just comparative growth.
All right, that's all for crypto.
From London, thank you so much. And as the regulatory scrutiny on crypto grows, billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried told us last week that he's hopeful about where the regulatory process has gone and the progress that has been made so far.
You look at where we were a year ago with very little going on the regulatory side. You look today where there are proposals in Congress to provide clarity for spot cryptocurrency assets, where the SEC and CFTC are both working on regimes, where you have stablecoin bills going through. It is really a world of difference. And I agree that there needs to be clear federal oversight here to really protect consumers, and at the same time to be able to provide clarity for the industry to operate in the country. And I think we're making a lot of progress on both those fronts.
Joining us now for another take is Charlie Cooper, a former CFTC official who is now managing director at enterprise blockchain firm R3. Charlie, nice to see you again. Thank you so much for being here. What's your assessment of the progress we've made on the regulatory front, and how much further the U.S. has to go?
Well, I think Sam Bankman-Fried said it well, that there's a lot happening, which is encouraging. You're seeing engagement not just here in the U.S., but in Europe and in Asia, in a whole host of forms, everything from central bank digital currencies to digital assets to the role of stablecoins.
We think that blockchain rails have a lot, frankly, to offer traditional finance when you look at the settlement issues that we've seen in the financial ecosystem. And so I think combining together a lot of the technology from the crypto ecosystem with with products we want from traditional finance, at least we think it's a really promising future.
That was FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried speaking with us here on Bloomberg Crypto last week. As Wall Street has increasingly toyed with digital asset ventures, there are now questions looming around how blockchain will change the way companies and investors raise capital. You already see the changes brewing in the market. Bloomberg's Sonali Basak has been tracking them all. Sonali, just describe this evolution for us.
You think about it, back from initial coin offerings to NFTs, non-fungible tokens, crypto markets have for years been utilizing blockchain technology to raise funds all outside the traditional capital markets. And even during a crypto winter, we've seen large investors from Greylock and Temasek and Andreessen Horowitz who have poured money into firms and are fueling the NFT market in particular. And Cowen Digital estimates that noteworthy NFT investments and NFT transactions have totaled $1.9 billion year to date.
So-called cross-chain bridges are tools that allow the transfer of tokens from one blockchain to another. The exchange temporarily halted its blockchain network in response to the hack. Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao said the issue has been contained and BNB Chain has resumed operations.
What has to be done, I think, the industry, as an industry, we just got to learn how to learn from this kind of mistakes and make our code more secure. But software code is never bug-free. But in the blockchain world, whenever there's a bug, it could result in very large losses. This is one of the cases that happened. But we were able to minimize quite a lot of the damage to less than 100 million now.
I spoke with a security expert from Solidus Labs about how something like this could happen and what it means for the industry. So BNB Chain is just the latest victim in this string of bridge hacks this year. Talk a little bit about how this exploit went down and how the attackers were able to make off with so much money.
Before jumping into the granular details, it is important to say that it's another example that bridges specifically that basically connect and enable users to transfer funds between one blockchain to another, prove yet again to be a very sensitive part of the ecosystem. Vitalik himself, Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, said a number of times in the past that he believes it's one of the potentially one of the weak links and that they're probably not going to be a sustainable solution. We had another very large hack about 8 months ago using the wormhole bridge. And this one happens on Binance, Binance Chain, which is, of course, one of the most important players out there. In summary, what happened is that essentially the hacker was able to convince the smart contracts that are essentially form the bridge. And again, we use this term smart contracts a lot to simplify. It's basically code and sets of code. The hacker was able to convince the smart contracts to mint funds as if they were his, and then ultimately withdraw. At the moment, we know that we're talking about $570 million worth of Binance coin, around 2 million Binance coin. It seems at the moment that he wasn't able to withdraw all of them from the system because there was a relatively quick response for a decentralized operation that basically paused the system for 8 hours. So right now the estimates is are that about $147 million was actually withdrew from the system, but also were not converted to cash, but rather put into other areas in the blockchain ecosystem.
So let's talk a little bit about that centralized topic. There are sort of two groups of bridges. There's the trusted, which has that third party to facilitate transactions, and then there's trustless, which is more decentralized. And in this case, the BSC Token Hub was a trusted bridge. So was Ronin. Which of these is perceived to be safer, actually? Is it trusted or trustless bridges that people should expect to have a little more protection for their assets?
It depends on the blockchain. And because of that, it's very hard usually for hackers, increasingly hard, as the system, as blockchain and crypto becomes more regulated and improves security and market integrity standards, it becomes very hard to turn that into cash.
Thing, and I think it'll change in a slowdown. I think people, CEOs. I was listening to Sam Bankman-Fried earlier, and they're all in the office. They said, "How many days a week?" He said 6.5. I was like, "Yes, I like to hear that." But he said, even for him, he said that productivity suffers when the team isn't together, especially doing creative things. And I find that we're all in the office, and I find it. People come voluntarily. I don't have to ask them to come in.
For them to digest with the few remaining weeks we have in this calendar year.
Big names in crypto like Sam Bankman-Fried, the billionaire founder of FTX, are also trying to make change with their dollars, emerging as influential political donors. While he says he's motivated primarily by pandemic prevention.
All right, so let's talk more about the intersection of politics and crypto. According to a survey conducted by Grayscale and the Harris poll, there is bipartisan support for greater action in Washington to clarify and strengthen crypto regulation. Joining us now is Craig Salm, Chief Legal Officer for Grayscale, which is the world's largest digital currency asset manager. So, Craig, great for you to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. Your survey finds that about 4 in 5 Americans feel that there needs to be clearer regulation of cryptocurrency. What kind of regulation do they want to see?
So that's certainly one of the key findings in the report, that you have over 80% of respondents saying they want more clear regulation. That's something that we're hearing anecdotally. It's something that we're also hearing with meetings that we have down in D.C. In terms of the type of regulatory clarity, the poll did not get into those specifics. One common factor was more consumer protection, which is also consistent with what we're seeing from things like the White House executive order from last March, where for the first time you had the White House calling for cohesive action to have a plan so that America could stay the competitor and be the leader in crypto. And the way you do that is by, one, promoting innovation, allowing it to flourish, while also protecting investors and consumers. And this poll is certainly consistent with that.
And what does the poll indicate about how it affects people's desire or eagerness to vote, how they are voting?
So upwards of more than 1/3 of respondents said that they are considering crypto when they go to the polls during this midterm election. More than half also said that they would more favorably consider a candidate if they were interested in staying informed about crypto. And that's consistent and important. This is a new asset class. There's a lot of innovation around it. There's a lot of risks around it. And they want to make sure that those that they're voting for are staying informed about those two things.
Do they care who does the regulating? Is it the SEC? Is it the CFTC? Do they even know who would be doing the regulating or have a preference there?
Yeah, that's a really good question and gets to one of the biggest questions that is now being grappled with in Congress. Who should the regulator be? Other parts of the world don't necessarily have this kind of question because we're unique in that we have multiple different financial regulators that cover different assets and different types of intermediaries. Right now, there's a couple of bills being passed through Congress, like the Digital Commodity Consumer Protection Act or the DCCPA. That's from Senators Bozeman and Stabenow. And then the Responsible Financial Innovation Act from Senators Gillibrand and Lummis. Each one of those bills would give more clarity to the types of centralized intermediaries that exist in crypto. Some of those falling within the CFTC jurisdiction, which regulates commodity futures, others falling under SEC jurisdiction.
Well, what do you want, Craig? What does Grayscale want?
I think it really depends on the type of use case that you're talking about and the intermediary. So like the internet, there's not one singular use case for crypto.
Get these things regulated to have access to these kind of investments. Is there a way for you
For them to digest with the few remaining weeks we have in this calendar year.
Big names in crypto like Sam Bankman-Fried, the billionaire founder of FTX, are also trying to make change with their dollars.
Advocacy groups have spent $3.9 million in the first half of this year. FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried has also spent millions of dollars on lobbying and fundraising for crypto-friendly candidates.
There's been millions of dollars donated from crypto executives to their affiliated PACs, and those affiliated PACs have then spent millions of dollars, largely during the primaries and a little bit during the general election. But the one big player that stands out among all of them is Sam Bankman-Fried. And he's pumped over $30 million into these midterms. It is the first time, I believe, he is one of the top donors toward federal races across the country.
At the same time, SBF's colleague Ryan Salem has financed GMI PAC, which hopes to spend $20 million on crypto-friendly candidates.
Where Bankman-Fried said that FTX had about $6 billion in withdrawals over a 72-hour period before Tuesday morning. That came in a telegram about crypto. Isn't it likely, given this, given Voyager, given Three Arrows, given Celsius, hard not to see some perhaps new and very tough regulation coming down the political pike?
That's absolutely right. Very interesting, too, because another moral of the story is how much of crypto.
The case of Sam Bankman-Fried losing this feud that's emerged?
You could argue that, and these two, I know